Envious men, James 3 verse 16. For where envy and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work. The apostle in this chapter is upon the duty of bridling the tongue, and he has a special respect to that part of the government of the tongue which consists in refraining from talking against others and expressing with the tongue an ill spirit towards our neighbours. He begins, "My brethren, be not masters," James 3 verse 1, i.e. don't set up for judges of others. Let not every man take upon him to be his neighbour's judge. It is not fit you should all be masters, all judges. The Apostle Paul informs us that if we talk against our neighbours and judge them, we take upon us to treat men as if they were our servants. Romans 14 verse 4. Who art thou that judgest another man's servant? To his own master he standeth or falleth. And this apostle in the next chapter writes that if we judge our neighbours, we don't act like God's servants or doers of the law, but as if we were the lawgivers and judges. James 4:11-12. The apostle sets forth the great difficulty and importance of this duty of bridling the tongue. He compares an ungoverned tongue to a little fire that is sufficient to set a great matter in flames, as a coal or spark is sufficient to burn up a house or city. So an unruly tongue is sufficient to put a family or town into a fire of contention. It setteth on fire the course of nature, says the apostle, and is set on fire of hell. Verse 6, and again, it is an unruly evil full of deadly poison. Verse 8. In verse 9, the apostle sets forth the poisonous nature of an unruly tongue in an instance. Therewith, says he, bless we God, and therewith curse we men, i.e. men that seem to be religious, that will seem to pray to God devoutly, yet with the same tongue will show a malignant spirit against their neighbour. By cursing here we are to understand not only imprecating a curse upon men, but speaking evil to or of men, or any way showing a desire of his hurt, or expressing an ill will against him. So blessing and cursing seem often to be intended in Scripture, blessing for expressing goodwill. The apostle in verse 13 recommends a contrary disposition and behaviour to an aptness to talk and show a spirit against our neighbour, from its becoming of a wise man. But envying and strife he shows to be contrary to true wisdom and goodness. Men that are of such a spirit and practice may think themselves to be wise men and good men, but the apostle informs us that they lie against the truth, in boasting of any such thing. Verse 14. He gives such a spirit as bad a character as any disposition need to have. It is earthly, sensual, devilish. Verse 15. What can be worse? And in the text, the apostle evidences the character he had given of it by the fruits. For where envy and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work. He puts envy and strife together, as he had before in verse 14, probably for two reasons. One, as being very near akin, and one arising from the other. Contention is the natural offspring of envy. 2, because that sort of contention that is an envious contention is one of the worst sorts and of most pernicious effects. The effects he mentions are 2, namely, 1, confusion or a tumult and uproar and uneasiness, as the original word signifies. It turns everything upside down in men's own hearts and in societies. 2, every evil works when envy and contention enter into any society. It comes from hell. It is earthly, sensual, devilish, as the apostle tells us, and it brings up its fruits with it, all sorts of wickedness. Doctrine, envy and contention are things of exceeding pernicious consequences. 1, show what envy is. 2, that it is of a very pernicious tendency. 3, especially so when it breaks out into contention. Envy is a being grieved or uneasy of another's prosperity, as if the prosperity of another be the thing that hurts a man and makes him feel uneasy or unpleasantly. That is envy, or whatever kind that prosperity is, whether it be spiritual or temporal prosperity. The elder brothers envying the younger, who was the prodigal, when his father killed the fatted calf for him, signifies envy for spiritual prosperity. Luke 15:11-32. And so, when those that were called to labour in the vineyard in the morning envied those that were called at the 9th and at the 11th hour, because they had equal wages with them, it signified envy for the spiritual prosperity. Matthew 20:1-16. And if it be uneasiness at another's temporal prosperity, of whatever kind that be, whether they are uneasy at another's honour or wealth or pleasure, it is envy. And whether the persons whose prosperity they are uneasy at are either good men or wicked men, it alters not the case. If a man's spirit be hurt at the honour or wealth of a wicked man, let him be never so wicked, that is envy. And therefore we are directed in Proverbs 24:1, be not envious against evil men. Indeed, the prosperity of a wicked man may be the occasion of grief in another, and yet that be not envy, because though the prosperity be the occasion of the unease, yet it is not the thing that they are uneasy of. For instance, the prosperity of Antichrist may be the cause of grief in a man, and the thing he is uneasy of may be not the prosperity any person enjoys. It is not the thing they are uneasy with, but only the mischief that is the occasion to the church. But whenever another person's prosperity be the thing that is grievous, it is envy. It may arise from various causes. If it arises from a spirit against a man's person, those that person hates, they don't love to see in prosperity. It may arise from a grudge that one person has against another, from some injury received or some quarrel that there has been between them. Sometimes it arises from pride. Pride loves to be alone in prosperity. It loves neither superiors nor equals in prosperity. The nature of it is to aspire to be like God. God is alone, he has no superiors nor equals. That is the way the first pride that ever was worked, namely the pride of the devils. They endeavoured to get into the throne of God. Envy evermore arises from self-love and a want of loving our neighbour as ourselves. Some envy others because their prosperity is greater than theirs. They can't bear to see others above them. And a man may envy another whose prosperity is not so great as his own. It may come too near an equality with it for him to be easy with it. Though he is something above his neighbour, yet he loves to be more above him than he is. Thus the elder brother envied the younger, because his father killed the fatted calf for him. Though, as his father told him, he was always with him, and all that he had was his. Luke 15:31. 2. This envy is a thing of a very pernicious tendency, when it only lurks in a man's heart and puts forth itself in inward exercises, if it don't break out into outward actions. All men have this principle of corruption in them, but some are much more in the exercise of it than others. Where there is much of the workings of an envious spirit in a man's heart, it is like poison to him. The prevalency of such lusts is like a viper at the heart of religion. Religion never will, never can flourish in a heart where envy is indulged. It is exceeding contrary to Christianity. And then it is an uncomfortable sort of passion. What we have said of the nature of it evidences this. The nature of it consists in grief and uneasiness. It destroys a man's comfort to be of an envious disposition. He goes about fretting himself and having pain and uneasiness at those things that he has no sort of occasion to be uneasy of. He can't enjoy himself because his neighbour prospers. If he would be easy and quiet about the condition of other men, he would be in far better condition himself. He would enjoy himself a great deal better. And if he restrains himself, and his envy don't break out into open contention, yet if there be a great deal of the exercise of it in a man's breast, it will show itself in some way or other. He won't perform those duties towards his neighbour that he should do. He will not be forward to promote his good. He will inwardly rejoice at his misfortunes. It will be agreeable to him to hear him talked against. He'll hear it with pleasure. Many other pernicious consequences might be here mentioned, which will be taken notice of under the next head. Therefore, 3. Especially is envy a thing of a pernicious consequences when it breaks out into contention, that is, when men show the spirit that they have against others that they envy, in their words or in their outward behaviour. When a man has not only enmity in his breast, but when he vents it in his talk to or of the persons that he envies, when it causes him to break out in a passion, or when he carries on any design against a man to endeavour any mischief to him, or to lessen his property, such a practice as this is indeed of very pernicious consequences. Here first, it is of very pernicious consequence to the persons contending. It is especially pernicious unto them, the man that from envy contends with his neighbour, and shows his ill will to him, and spirit against him. He don't hurt his neighbour 1/10 part so much as himself. He foolishly bites himself out of envy and spite to another. He endeavours to send his darts against his neighbour, when indeed he stabs them into himself. He gives himself abundantly the worst wounds. 1. He destroys his own peace and comfort. He disturbs the calm and repose of his own mind by the heats of his spirit. He is put into a tumult. There is as much difference between him whose spirit is disturbed by envy and malice and contention, and a man that is of a meek and quiet spirit, as there is at sea when it is calm and the surface of the water is smooth, and the sky clear and the heavens serene, and when there is a storm and the water and the winds are all in a rage, and the heavens covered with black clouds. The envious, contentious man's mind can't rest. Isaiah 57 verse 20. The wicked are like the troubled sea when it cannot rest, whose waters cast up mire and dirt. 2. Envious contention contracts abundance of guilt. God exceedingly hates such things. It is very contrary to the nature of true holiness and the nature of God. God is a God of love and of peace. And how much has he insisted upon the duties of love in his holy word? 'Tis exceeding contrary to the nature of Christ, the Lamb of God. Men are not sensible how guilty they are before God by their strife and envy. And as it contracts guilt and provokes God, so it very much tends to the undoing of men. It tends to hinder their salvation. 'Tis very provoking to God to suffer the exercises of envy in a man's own breast, but exceedingly more so when men give way to it and allow it so as to practice upon it for carrying on designs and maintaining strife against their neighbour. While men keep provoking God in such a manner, they be not in a very fair way to salvation. 3. 'Tis a great enemy to the spiritual health of the soul. Envious strife is a dreadful enemy to all true religion. 'Tis as contrary as is possible to the Spirit of God, and nothing tends more to quench the Spirit. It will hinder all his kindly motions, not only the exercises of grace, but the converting influence of the Spirit. 'Tis an enemy to all religious exercises. It hinders men's prayers. 'Tis in a miserable manner men are like to pray to God, and lift up their souls to him, that come but out of contention into God's presence, and bring their envy and contentious spirit along with them. Such sacrifices are very poor things. Such devotion is good for nothing. God nauseates and abominates such prayers. They stink in his nostrils. So it hinders men in attendance on ordinances, when men bring their envy and their wrath and their spite with them to God's house and to his table. What are their services good for? They be not like to attend on any ordinance in an acceptable or a profitable manner. There is nothing that is good is like to be promoted in a man's heart, while he is going on in this way of envy and strife. All that grows is evil. There are no advantages like to be gained of a religious or spiritual nature. The times of the prevalence of such a spirit are the devil's times, and all things of a religious nature and that tend to the good of a man's soul go to wrack. When such a spirit prevails, many lusts are in exercise. When a man's spirit is heated with envy and a spirit against others, all the whole gang of lusts they rise. There is pride. Men never show their pride so much as in contention. There is intemperate wrath. There is revenge. There is covetousness. For when they contend, it is about the world generally, and raises and puts into exercise a covetous spirit. And there is injustice. So when men's spirits are heated in contention, they have not regard to justice, they be not wont to tie up themselves to rules. They haven't coolness of spirit enough to consider whether what they do is just or unjust. Contention puts the soul into an exceeding ill frame. Second, envy and strife are of exceeding pernicious consequences in any society. When any society are got into a contention, and there are envyings, emulation, wrath, strife in the society, or when there is such a spirit shown publicly and in the management of public business, 'tis of a very pernicious consequences. Here, 1. It destroys the comfort of society. God has made man with such a nature that he is fitted and inclined to live in society, and he is of such a nature and circumstances that we are necessitated to dwell in society, and society, if well improved, tends much to the happiness of mankind. But the comfort of society very much consists in love and peace. Psalm 133, verse 1. Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. Especially it should be accounted so amongst a Christian people. The more any society is full of contentions, the more they are like the company of the damned. For great part of the misery of hell consists in the reign of malice and spite there. And the more there is of love and peace, the more they are like heaven. 2. It makes confusion in a society. As it is said in our text, where there is envy and strife, there is confusion. Contention puts things in an uproar. It confounds that good order which is the beauty of society. It frequently occasions many indecencies. Men in the heat of their passion don't keep themselves within the bounds of decency and good order. They'll vent their spirit and don't regard what becomes of decency. It is said of love and charity in 1 Corinthians 13 verse 5 that it behaveth not itself unseemly, but the contrary may be said of its contrary. Envy and strife, it behaveth itself very unseemly. When men's spirits are heated, oftentimes they don't mind what they say or do. They forget that respect which is due to superiors, or that honour which is due to all men, and oftentimes forget their own reputation. It may be marked that those societies that are most contentious evermore have the least of good order. 3. 'Tis to a people's dishonour, such things are soon famed abroad. 4. The prevailing of envy and contention exceedingly hinders the success of ordinances and the flourishing of religion amongst the people. When the people are contending, religion evermore runs very low. Contention kills religion many ways. It greatly hinders it, as we have shown, in the hearts of those that exercise a spirit of contention. It drives away the Spirit of God and lets in the spirit of the devil. It hinders them in private. So it keeps the presence and blessing of God from accompanying public worship and ordinances. When such a society meet together, Christ won't be in the midst of them. He has no pleasure in being amongst a quarrelling, envious crew. Their pretended public worship is nauseous to him. When there comes out of the same mouth blessing and cursing, when the same tongue bless God that curses men, God won't have any pleasure in such blessing. That blessing which comes out of such a mouth is like to be dreadfully tainted. See verses 10 to 11 of the context. Out of the same mouth proceedeth blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not to be so. Doth a fountain send forth at the same place sweet water and bitter? And it hinders religion in a place another way, namely as it takes up men's thoughts. When there is contention in a place, persons' minds are taken up about it, and all the talk is about it, and there is little said about the things of religion and another world. 5. In a society where there is contention, there is every evil work. That is, it has a tendency to promote every evil thing. There will be evil speaking, backbiting. Men will get together and spend away their evenings in talking against their neighbour, setting forth his ill qualities and telling of the ill things he has done. They feed one another with such talk. There will be a great deal of evil surmising and jealousies. They'll surmise this thing and the other, what mischiefs this man intends to do, what evil designs he has in his heart, when it may be 'tis but mere guesswork. They have very little foundation for their surmises. This is directly contrary to the spirit of charity which the Apostle describes, 1 Corinthians 13 verse 5. Thinketh no evil. Evil surmising is generally an attendant of envy and strife, 1 Timothy 6 verse 4, where there we find those things joined together, envy, strifes, railings, evil surmisings. There is emulation, striving with others with respect to honour among the works of the flesh, Galatians 5:20-21. Hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, envyings. Where there is envious strife amongst a people, there will be plottings and contrivings against this and the other person, how to pull him down. Hypocrisy and flattering appear fair to a man's face, when mischief is in his own heart. Where there is envy and contention, 10 to 1, but there will be misrepresentations of things, and lying carried on without end by one or other. There will be slandering, there will be abundance of false reports spread about that have been raised by one busybody or another. Sometimes envy and contention is the occasion of abominable cheating. Men will take fraudulent, knavish, vile methods to accomplish their designs and to get their wills, and to carry their purposes against those that they envy. Some men get such a blot upon their names by what they do in contention that it shall not be soon wiped away. Application. Use 1 of self-examination in 2 branches. First, examine yourself whether or no you don't harbour within yourself an envious spirit towards any of your neighbours. Be strict in examining yourself, as it greatly concerns you to know. Be not you grieved at the prosperity of some of your neighbours. Be not you uneasy that they are in such prosperity. Don't it hurt your spirit and make you feel unpleasantly that they are under such advantages to get money, that they get it so easily and grow rich so fast? Don't it make you feel unpleasantly that they get wealth so much easier and faster than you? Or that such an one of your neighbours is advanced? He is put into offices, he grows great. Examine whether or no you don't indulge this vile temper and disposition in you to envy such. Be not you hurt in your spirit that such or such a man has so much power and influence, that he gets his will and has things as he would. Don't you find that you are concerned about it, when you hear of the advancement of one or another? Is it not unpleasant news to you? Is it ungrateful tidings? Could not you be glad it was otherwise? Would it not be pleasant tidings to you to now hear that such an one has lost his post, that he was deprived of such an advantage to get money? Would you not be the more easy if such an one was pulled down? Don't you indulge such an unchristian and abominable spirit as this is? I know well enough that envious persons are full of their excuses. They are not wont to call their envy by any bad names. They will plead to themselves that they don't do amiss. Yea, sometimes they persuade themselves they do well. They call their envy by some good name or other. Envious men hate to own that they do envy, for all the world knows that envy is a base disposition. Those that are bred up among Christians know that it is a devilish temper, and a man that indulges himself in it will hardly ever own it, no, not to himself. They'll call it something else. If they should own it was envy, it would take away much of that base kind of delight they have in indulging such a lust. For though envy be an uneasy passion, yet men love to indulge and gratify it, and therefore they are full of their excuses. One thing it may be that you'll say in excuse for yourself is that they whose advancements you are uneasy at be not worthy of their advancements. Such a man is not fit to be chosen by a town. Such an one is not worthy of such a commission. They be not worthy of such honour and advancement. There are other men that are as fit as they, and a great deal more that they are overlooked. And it may be that you think so of yourselves. And so you plead that this is not envy for you to be uneasy when those men are advanced that be not fit for it. It is lawful for you to be uneasy, because it is not for the interest of the country for men to be advanced to posts that be not worthy of them. But here pray consider whether or no you don't deceive yourself in this excuse that you make for yourself. Examine your own heart. Is it out of pure love to your country and tender concern for its welfare that you are concerned that such persons are in such and such honourable or profitable posts? Is that indeed the very thing? Is it only that, or is it that chiefly? Or is it not this the truth of the case, that 'tis the person's honour or prosperity that is the very spring of your concern and uneasiness? Would it not be agreeable to you, and what you would in your heart be glad of, if he should be deprived of it, though it should not be at all more for the interests and welfare of the country? Be plain and ingenuous in confessing the matter as it really is to your own conscience. Do you verily think that your uneasiness at such and such man's advancement and profit, and others that are of the same spirit with you, is only or chiefly out of a public spirit, and a peculiar love to your country, and concern for its welfare, that you are of, more than other men? Would you not be glad, though your country suffered as much another way? Or is it not envy? Is not the prosperity of their persons the main thing with you? If you are a good man, you'll bear to be searched. 2. Again, it may be you'll say it is from love to justice. There are other men that deserve such posts it is but fitting they should have. And so you pretend that your uneasiness is only because you are concerned that other men may have their rights. Here again I desire you, see, that you don't deceive yourself. Is not there many other things that are as much out of course as this is, that don't give you a quarter of the uneasiness? Be you concerned for every man that suffers as much injustice, that you are as near to as you are to those, so as to make you so uneasy and concerned as you are about this matter? Or supposing the post should be taken away and given to another one that you are more friendly with, and have not such a spirit against, though he should not be at all more deserving, would you not be glad? Is it not thus? Examine your own heart, if it be thus. Don't lay your uneasiness to your love of justice, but lay it to envy. The elder brother that envied the prodigal pretended that he did not deserve. Luke 15 verse 30. You pretend you are uneasy because the man has more honour or better advantages than he deserves. But why should you be so uneasy if he has? What need you vex yourself if he has more honour than his share, and though he gets more money than he has goodness? If it was your own case, you would not be uneasy at it. If you had respect put upon it, rather more than you deserved, and if you had a great deal more money than you have virtue, you be not concerned. If a man has a true Christian love to his neighbour, he won't be apt to break his rest about such things. One would think that men that have so much from God that they don't deserve should not envy. 3. Again, you'll say it may be an excuse for yourself that such a man is a bad sort of man and don't make a good improvement of his honour and prosperity. He abuses it. But what if it be so? That is no excuse for your envy. He is to be pitied by you, with hearty compassion, and not to be envied. Be not you often warned against envying wicked men? Psalm 37 verse 1. Fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity. Proverbs 23 verse 17. Let not thine heart envy sinners. And Proverbs 24 verse 1. Be not thou envious against evil men. 4. Again, it may be you'll say that their honour and prosperity hurts them. It makes them proud, they have too much sail, they are like to be overset with it. They advance too high, they can't bear it. They grow so proud and assuming that there is no doing with them. And so you pretend that it is out of concern for them, for their good, that you are uneasy of their advancement. But is it so indeed? Is it really out of hearty and sincere love to them that you are concerned at their prosperity? Is not this a mere sham? Is it not the right reverse of love? When will you ever find a man that envies another, but that he will have some such excuses and pleas for it? He'll say he is not fit, and he is proud, and it does him a great deal of hurt, and many things they'll say against those that they envy, as if they were worthy to be hated by everyone. Second, examine yourself whether or no you don't suffer your envy to break out in your talk and behaviour. Is it not the occasion of a great deal of evil speaking? Is it not a thing that you allow yourself to vent your envy in reproaching and reviling the men you envy? Don't you love to go and sit and talk with some others of the same party and the same spirit with yours, and spend your time in judging and declaiming against your neighbour? Is not this the root and spring of heats of spirit and anger and contention in you? Has not this been the occasion of contentious talk? Is not this the occasion of your opposing your neighbour? Oftentimes men that envy another and have a spirit against him will oppose another in anything that he endeavours to promote, for no other cause but only that he loves to vent his spite. He'll endeavour to hinder and clog him in any of his designs and undertakings, for no other reason. Has not your envy proceeded so far that you have laid yourself out in contriving how you may pull your neighbour down, how you may bring it about that you may deprive him of his prosperity? There is generally much of this envious spirit and envious designs and actions, where there are parties in a place. There is generally a great deal of it on both sides. If one party has the advantage of the other as to power and influence, they'll be envied of the other. If one party gets their wills in any public affair, the other party can't bear it. It sorely vexes them. They that are advanced of either party are envied by the other party. Generally, there are some particular men that do the greatest part towards maintaining a party spirit. They are hottest with hatred, wrath, and strife, and envy themselves, and they blow up the same flame in others. They are the principal instruments of bringing contention into a society. Sometimes there is so much of this spirit between parties in a place that there are many that regard the carrying on the particular designs of their party more than the greatest public good. It is very sorrowful when it is so. Envy between parties is a passion that generally is not alone. There are others as bad as that, or at least much akin to it for badness along with it. There is generally a spirit of revenge. There are old grudges. Men remember some old things that have passed long ago, some old affront they can't forget, and never will leave trying to come up with them for it. Let everyone examine how it has been with himself, whether or no he, in his heats and debates and party contentions and evil speakings, have not been influenced by this envious spirit we have been speaking of. Use too of reproof. To those who do indulge an envious spirit and vent in envious talk and practices. Here, first consider how exceeding contrary such a spirit and practice is to the spirit of Christianity. Christ is the Prince of Peace. He abundantly insisted upon it, that his disciples should love one another. That was his commandment. Hereby he told them all men should know his disciples from others, that they loved one another. John 13:34-35. This is the royal law, that we should love one another. Christ himself, whose professed disciples we are, was meek and lowly, exceeding far from an envious and contentious spirit. He did not vex himself about this and that man's being promoted. How full is the gospel of rules and precepts of love and peace! It would be well for men if they read and considered the New Testament more than they do. I shall mention a few places out of 1,000. Ephesians 4:31-32. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamour and evil speaking be put away from you, with all malice, and be kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ's sake have forgiven you. Philippians 2:3. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind let each esteem others better than themselves. 1 Peter 2:1-2. Wherefore laying aside all malice and all guile, and hypocrisies and envies, and all evil speakings, as newborn babes desire the sincere milk of the word. Matthew 18 verse 3. Except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. James 3 verse 17. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality. 1 Corinthians 13 verse 2 and verses 4 to 5. Though I have all faith and have not charity, I am nothing. Charity suffereth long, and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself. It is not puffed up, does not behave itself unseemly, seeketh not her own, is not easily provoked, thinketh no evil. This it becomes Christians to do. Such a spirit as this becomes the members of Jesus Christ. Such a spirit as this becomes the dear children of God. An envious spirit in practice is as different from the spirit of true Christianity as hell is unlike to the highest heaven. Second, how contrary your envious practices are to that rule of doing to others as you would that they should do to you. When you endeavour to do your own neighbour a displeasure, are trying to pull him down, would you like it if it were your case, if you had the same advantages as he has, and another should be so uneasy at it, and should be wishing and crying out himself to deprive you of what you had? Would you not take it hardly? Yea, though it was more than you deserved, though your advancements were beyond your virtue, and though there were others more fit for it than you, yet would not you find fault with it, that he should go to busy himself so much about it, that he should concern himself in contriving to pull you down? Would not you be ready to think that it was none of his business, and wonder that he could not let you alone? Would not you be ready to say with yourself, I have done him no hurt, what need he be concerned about me, to do me a displeasure? And why will you do that which is so contrary as to what you would be willing to receive? Third, generally those that are of an envious spirit in practice towards their neighbour are guilty of the very same things that they find fault with them for. Envious persons generally find fault with them that envy for their pride. They make that an excuse for their envy, that he is a proud man, and 'tis not fit that such a person should be advanced. It makes them still more proud, and they want to be humbled, whereas they are guilty of the very same thing. They are proud, and thence comes their envy. They would not concern themselves who is advanced and who has honour, were it not for their pride. But their proud hearts can't bear to see their neighbour above them, or it may be not equal with them. They think their neighbour is proud, and intends to grow great, and to get above them, and they can't bear it. 'Tis because of their pride. Otherwise it would not hurt them at all. They would let alone who would get honour. They would not concern themselves about it. And hence comes their strife and contention. Proverbs 13 verse 10. Only by pride cometh contention. And Proverbs 22 verse 10. Cast out the scorner, and contention shall go out. Yea, strife and reproach shall cease. Fourth, if you were concerned as you ought to be about your own soul and your eternal salvation, you would not be so concerned and uneasy at the temporal prosperity of others. You would be sensible then that you have concerns enough of your own to take up your thoughts. If you were sensible of the vanity of this world and of the vast importance of eternal things, you would find enough else to be concerned about. You would not vex your mind about this man's being advanced to honour, and to that man's getting money so fast. You would not concern yourself so much whether he was worthy of his temporal advantages. You would think more of your own unworthiness a great deal more than of other persons. It is a shame for persons that have a hell of eternal misery to avoid, and a heaven of eternal happiness, that are in a few days to be called before God to be judged for eternity, to grieve because their fellow worm gets more of this earth than they, and to be so engaged in their plotting and contriving how to pull down their neighbour, as if they had nothing else more worthy to be minded by them. It is of infinitely greater concern to you that your soul may be saved, than who shall be in this or that profitable post. If men see the vanity of the world, they would envy not a man because he has more of it than he. Fifth, it is a thing difficult enough to get to learn. You had not need block up the way by indulging envy against your neighbour. You had need to lay aside every weight in order to your being successful in salvation. You desire to be saved. Why will you then go to block up your way by envy and contention? If you seek salvation, the living in envy and practicing according to it tend as much to hinder it as if you lived in a way of drunkenness. It exceedingly tends, as we have shown, to quench the Spirit. The Spirit of God is the Spirit of love. There is no readier way to drive it away than by such lusts as malice and envy. Men that live in such a way, they dreadfully expose their own souls to ruin. What says the Apostle in Galatians 5 verse 15? If ye bite and devour one another, take heed that ye be not consumed one of another. Men's souls perish and are consumed oftentimes by envy and contention. You talk of cutting down your neighbour. There is more danger of your cutting down your own soul. Proverbs 26 verse 27. Whoso diggeth a pit shall fall therein. There is danger that God will deal with you according to your envious designs towards others. To the froward, God will show himself froward. Psalm 18 verse 26. You endeavour to pull down your neighbour, God may pull down your soul. Ezekiel 35 verse 11. Therefore, as I live, saith the Lord God, I will even do according to thine anger, and according to thine envy which thou hast used out of thine hatred against them. Sixth, while you continue in such a way, your prayer avails to no other purpose but only to enkindle God's anger against you. Your prayers in your families and closets are good for nothing if you are in such a way. Christ directs us, when we bring our gift to the altar, first to be reconciled to our brother before we offer our gift. Matthew 5:24. With what face can we beg mercy of God, who have so provoked God all the while with evil in our hearts to our neighbour, that we have not 1,000th part so much reason to hate, as God has to hate us? Truly the prayers of such persons who indulge a spirit of envy against their neighbour, and allow themselves to go on in an agreeable practice, their prayers are abominable to God. You go to private meetings, it may be to pray for the pouring out of the Spirit of God. Seventh, an envious disposition is a devilish disposition. It is not only devilish, as all sin may be said to be, but 'tis about a temper that is peculiarly the temper of the devil, as the Apostle informs us in the 2 verses preceding the text. If ye have bitter envy and strife in your hearts, glory not and lie not against the truth. This wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, devilish. It don't come from above, it comes from hell. The devil is an exceeding envious spirit. He envied man in a state of innocency. Eighth, consider how much it destroys your own comfort here in this world. Which do you think is the happiest man? He that minds his own concerns, seeking his own salvation and eternal happiness, and is not uneasy at others' prosperity, has not his own calm at all disturbed. Let who will be advanced, he that is willing to leave it with providence to promote whom God will to earthly honour and wealth, or he that frets himself about such a man's getting money easily, and about his growing great, and for fear he will think himself bigger than he frets himself, it may be, about the honour that is put upon him, his being advanced to some post, or having a higher seat in the meeting house, or some such thing. A sound heart is life for the flesh, but envy rottenness to the bones. Proverbs 14 verse 30. Ninth, this argues a littleness of soul. It's a poor, mean sort of a spirit to be so meddling in other men's affairs, and so concerned about their prospering, and for fear he'll be counted bigger than he. It is a foolish, silly sort of uneasiness. It is beneath a wise man to be concerned at such things. Job 5 verse 2. Wrath killeth the foolish man, and envy killeth the silly one. A man of true wisdom and greatness of soul won't have the calm of his soul disturbed by such things. How impertinent is such a man that is hurt because another man prospers. What if there is one of his neighbours that gets money apace, and is called by such and such titles, a higher title than he? What is that to him? How silly it is in a man to distress himself about it. This is not the part of a wise man, as the Apostle James teaches us in the context, verse 13. Who is a wise man and endued with knowledge among you? Let him show out of a good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom. And as it is concerning envy, so may it be said of contention. Them are little souls that are easily ruffled, and that are apt to be snarling and contending. 10th, consider how soon death will put an end to your envy and strife. You have but a little while here in this world. It is not worth the while to spend that in envying and quarrelling. If you are carrying on designs against your neighbour to pull him down, consider how soon death may come. And thus all that you can do to asperse and revile and pull down your neighbour will be at an end. Death at one stroke puts an end to all such things. Ecclesiastes 9, 5-6. The living know that they must die, but the dead know not anything. Also their love and their hatred and their envy are now perished. And what comfort do you think it will be to you when you come to die, to think that you have lived in envy, and that you have been a means of putting down such and such men, and depriving of them of an advantage to get money? Will this be any comfort to you when you come to look death in the face? Alas, you won't care who is in this or the other office. Then you'll have something else to think of and be concerned about. 11th, how exceeding unbecoming is this of those that sit at the same table of the Lord? This feast is a feast of love. Christ instituted this ordinance partly that his disciples, by coming and sitting together at the same table, might testify and seal their charity and peace with all their brethren. Feasting together has been generally used in all ages and nations as a token and seal of love and friendship. If a person indulges envy or malice towards any of his brethren, and is carrying on envious designs against him, it will be in the Lord's Supper 11. 11 was in the Passover, as the Apostle instructs us, 1 Corinthians 5 verse 8. Therefore let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness. If a person kept the Passover with leaven, it made the feast void, and not only so, but it wrought for their condemnation. Exodus 12 verse 15. Even the first day shall you put away leaven out of your houses. For whosoever eateth leavened bread from the first day until the seventh day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. So he that partakes of the Lord's Supper, indulging of envy and malice in his heart, he eats and drinks judgment to himself. 1 Corinthians 11:29. How does it seem to see a company and family of the visible children of the Most High God sitting together at God's table, feeding on the body and blood of Jesus Christ, God's own Son, who was from God's love to them slain to make a feast for them, and one sitting in one place envying another that sits at the same table because he gets money or because of an honourable title, and all the while having designs in his heart against him? Can you think that such sacraments are acceptable to God and to the Lord Jesus Christ, the Holy Lamb of God? No, they are abominable to him, as the vomit of a dog.